Well, Carl, last week we talked about Petey coming back and how it wasn't all that difficult for him to actually get back on the show. But this week, he paid dearly to stay on. So tell me, do you think it balanced out?
Well, again, thank you for having me. I think it was my last conversation of the night on the show when I said that Petey definitely earned his stripes. The guy had to battle every battle that you could think of in terms of, validating, why he was the one to emerge as, the eliminated players, and then to fight so hard against John. You didn't even see all of the putting that went on between them. I mean, it was exhausting to watch them go back and forth until, he made that, that tremendous putt that, kind of, caught John off guard and ended up eliminating John right off the bat. So I tell you, there is no one that can say anything bad about Petey. Him coming back, him, fighting the way he has, it was just phenomenal.
Yes, it was impressive, and his putting, it was funny. He really hit some beautiful putts, and then he'd miss these little ones. You wonder how much of it he was just mentally exhausted from putting all day long, it seemed.
And that's part of it. That's why this is such a unique, a unique setting. A lot of people sometimes say that it doesn't really mirror real golf, but it actually does, because in that moment when, let's say, you've hit all your shots and you get onto the green and you now have a determining putt, it's the same feeling, compounded by the fact that you have the cameras on, you know what it means, you know that it's your life or not. I mean, it is tremendous, and you can get mentally exhausted, especially if somebody's matching you constantly, and then it finally weighs on you to the point where you're worn down. So it is one of those things, like I said, if you've never experienced it, and many have said this before, but, it's absolutely true. If you've never experienced it, you don't know how difficult it is to, to be mentally strong within these challenges.
Yeah, even in a golf game, you have to be mentally strong one shot at a time, but between golf shots, you have a little time to kind of look around. If you're with a caddy, they try to distract you a bit to just get your mind off things and loosen up. So this three putt, 3 foot putt, 3 foot putt, 3 foot putt, like within seconds. I mean, you're just, constantly on the edge. So it was really impressive that it went as long as it did for both of them. And I can only imagine what it was like watching it live, because we just got to see a little bit of it on TV. I do want to ask you, though, when you got to read out the morning's card at breakfast, how does that get chosen? Is it sort of go around the table and every day there's somebody different has to read whatever they've got?
Yes. Typically in the morning, the morning producer who's there will ask, for example, one person as you come in and say, would you mind reading this morning? Of course, we don't know what the content of the letter is going to be, but yeah, it's, they will kind of point out and say, Carl, do you mind reading? David, do you mind reading? I think one morning, maybe last week when Shank said, is it my birthday? I think David was supposed to read that time, and Shank had jumped the gun because he never heard that they never wanted him to really read it, but it was perfect because, Shank being the type of person he was, everybody was thinking he was joking when they actually read that, but they normally point you out and ask you if you want to read it that morning.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure glad they didn't ask John. I think he would have lost his breakfast if he'd had to read that himself. He looked pretty sad.
I can tell you no one finished their breakfast, not even the guys who weren't going to be in that tournament. I mean, from the time we read that letter, it was we were almost numb at that point.
Oh, yeah, and the day was just beginning. So, well, after that, then we went into the first immunity challenge, and you got to team up, which is always great. It's good to have that team support. At the same time, it adds an enormous amount of pressure on top of you. But you guys came out on fire with those 220-yard shots. Just boom, boom, boom. It looked too easy.
Yeah, we felt confident. Whenever I absolutely need to, again, you have to make your strategy based on the objective. The objective was not to hit a beautiful swing that is made for TV and hit somewhere. The objective was simply to hit the fairway. And I knew that it was 220 yards to the edge of the fairway. Whenever I strike my 2-iron, hit it in the sweet spot, I've gotten it out to 260 yards before. So I felt comfortable that a 2-iron would be the shot for me, and it would allow me to control the shot, even though the green was sloping off to the right. So, I was able to, hit the shot, and the two guys came up right on behind me. And, Will made his shot perfect down the fairway, and Kent did the same.
Yeah. Well, and then we had the 130-yard shot, and what happened there?
I will tell you this. I think if there is such a thing as scripting a distance for the top 3 players, that threw them off because we were all uncomfortable with that distance. Unfortunately, I hit most of my irons longer than the average person. And it just so happens that all of us were struggling with that 130-yard shot, especially because it was slightly uphill, downhill to an uphill, and you had to come up within 21 feet. So, it's in between a sand wedge and a gap wedge for me. And, I went with the sand wedge and tried to hit it hard, but it ended up short. I was trying to catch the top of that, ridge towards the flag and let it release down. I just came up short. Then Will came up after me, kind of having the same problem with the distance, and used the longer club, and you saw it went too long. Ken came up and was just trying to do a nice knockdown shot in there and pulled it off to the left. So it's, it was just an uncomfortable distance, but it was also a made-for-TV moment based on what eventually happened and how it set up the importance of the next shot.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. It was great because it would have been a little boring to see you guys just walk away with this at the end of the day, but, right down to the last shot. And I was really interested. Will looked like he'd given up going into the bunker shot. That 130 took all the wind out of his sails, and he looked like he was going into the bunker shot, giving up. But obviously, he made the shot and everything was okay. What did you think about all of that?
No, you know what's funny? We had the order set and ready to go. Carr goes up front, Will comes in second, and Kent anchors. I mean, that's the format you saw that we used on the first shot. That's the format that we used in the second shot. But when we got there, Will was like, look, I feel like I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And so we immediately said, you know what? In terms of a team, the positioning that we have that has worked best in terms of who we are as individuals, let Will go first, and do his thing. And, Ken can follow up, and I'll be the anchor on this particular thing. It just so happened that, it worked out perfectly. So he wasn't giving up. He was just ready to go. He was like, let's just go. Let's just take this. So he stepped up, and, Ken was the one that says, Will said he's ready, man. Step in the bunker and get it going. When a guy says he's ready, let him loose, and let him do his thing. So, we decided at that minute to change up the order so that we could, we could maximize our chances of forcing them to beat us once we got 3 in there. And, I know I got a little emotional there, but I told people, I said, whenever I am on a team, I want it so much more because I know that they're dependent on your performance. Your failures are not your own, and your successes are not just your own. Somebody else is dependent on that. So it's, I get a little bit more riled up when there's a team thing going on.
Yeah, well, it was perfect TV. I have to tell you, I was wondering when I was watching it last night, I thought, as you're sitting there watching yourself on television, what were you thinking when you're clutching, waiting, because you know the outcome of it, but just, it must be fun kind of watching yourself going, did I really look like that?
It is really fun, and to be honest with you, I feel a certain level of nervousness, even though I know the results, because, I can see the people around me. We have some friends who come over and watch with us, and, I kind of sit in the background to kind of gauge their faces. They also have teenager kids who are not in any way interested in golf, so I kind of use their interest in whatever is going on to gauge how I think the ratings is going to be on the show as well. So it's kind of neat to be able to sit back and And we'll also do verbal bets in my house, which I'll ask, okay, you call it, make or miss, make or miss. So we kind of make it fun, as you're going to the commercials and stuff as to what everybody thinks is going to happen, and then it's revealed. So it's nervous fun,
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I can see that being just great fun. Well, you're good at analyzing sort of the competitions and whether they're fair or whatever. And I was curious what you would thought about the second immunity, where David didn't even get a chance to hit a shot because of the carryover of points. His future was in someone else's hands.
And that again is the twist that we had to be ready for in terms of the big break. The producers specifically crafted that challenge and had written this long before we had gotten to hitting the first shot on the big break. So they knew exactly what they wanted to see happen. They just didn't know who the individuals would be in that. So, it wasn't an on-the-fly decision. It was just based on, hey, if you had done well in the previous shots, then you gave yourself an advantage. Well, of course, we didn't know that, but again, it comes back to being able to hit good golf shots when it counts. As much as he didn't have control, if you step back to the initial challenges, you did. If you had made the shot that you needed to make in the prior challenges, not knowing that it would be counted, you kind of have control based on that. So I really didn't see it as unfair. I saw it as a very interesting twist, and ultimately it kind of added to the drama. But you saw what we even nicknamed David Youngblood. I don't know if you caught on to that, but ever since he, myself, and Shank went up in our challenge, he's been Youngblood. And then but Youngblood came too, and ironically, if you look at PD as being, the Goliath of the season and coming back, then, David slid Goliath at the end of the day.
That's for sure. He sure did. Well, it was it's certainly an exciting show and edge of the seat kind of nail-biting situation. And you're right. I mean, I think this carryover of your history, whether it's where you are on the money list, what points you had before, etc., really is adding to the drama of the show and making it that much more exciting than just one shot at a time, because it isn't just about this shot. You got there by where you were even in the last show or the show before.
Exactly.
It's very cool. Well, Carl, this has been terrific. Is there anything that I didn't ask you wanted to mention before we wrap it up?
Well, I will say this. Next week's episode will go down in history as one of the greatest episodes of Big Break ever. No matter what happens, no matter how it plays out, I can tell you, I'm already nervous for next week, and that's not giving an indication of whether or not I'm going to be there, not be there, or anything. But I tell you, if you think episode 4 was a good episode, be prepared for next week.
Well, okay. That's got me going. That's got me thinking. Well, thank you, Carl. It's been a real pleasure again talking to you, and I hope we can have the same chat next week.
I hope so too, my dear. Thank you again for having me. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.